This is a fun topic. We've all been playing around with the AI tools, and I've been going pretty deep into Claude Code and how to automate processes I do on Google and making lots of mistakes along the way. And so today is not how to do Claude specifically, it's more about how to think about it. What are the traps in general, how to conceive the process and what to try. I had a question from a client on Slack. They wanted to double check the meta spending and whether we had turned off some of the countries that weren't accurate. I could have gone into the platform itself and checked on the countries and figured out how much spend we were doing. I just cut and paste their question to me, and it produced a very succinct chart with color coded up and down in 2 minutes. Everybody gets this question. Can you trust it? Is it hallucinating? Is it making it up? It's a problem. I had a deck that I produced that had on slide 20, it showed a chart of the number of people who were signing up with free email accounts versus corporate email accounts. And it filled it out and had 80% on every row for the previous month. And I didn't catch that it was wrong, but our CMO and VP of sales, who are really intimately familiar with those numbers, caught it in a meeting I wasn't in. Claude had completely fabricated the numbers. I told it where to look, but it couldn't find them, so it made them all up. Big egg on my face, and made the whole deck called into question whether all the numbers were right or not. So trust is a big thing, and the way that you address it, you've got to address it from multiple different angles. So spot check. Can you eyeball it? Is it giving you the right one? If there's a number in there that you don't know, you can interrogate. You can just ask, where did this number come from? And have it show you its work. Deterministic is when you're asking Claude or the LLM questions, it's probabilistic and it can change the answers. And if it doesn't find one, it'll go around and find another answer. What I do in many cases where it's really important that it's correct is I migrate it. Because I'm using Claude Code, Claude writes code for me. And if you move the question from the LLM to the code, it then becomes a hard rule. So if it goes out of LLM into Python, where I'm doing the Claude coding, that's a sort of level 2 or 3 kind of technique. But if you can make it use a deterministic source rather than make it up, that's a pretty powerful way. And then I add tests. So whenever I make a mistake or I find something that's wrong, I say, make sure you don't make this mistake again. Build a test to show whenever we do something like this, the numbers are real and they're coming from real places, and that number is on the spreadsheet. Google has a recommendations page, and unsurprisingly, they pop up recommendations that tell you to spend more. And when you dismiss them, they come back again a few months later. And most of the ones where they tell you to spend more are ones that I don't want to see. And so I've got all these recommendations popping out into Slack, and I can then decide whether some of them I'll automatically decline, and some of them, if they're important, I'll review them in Slack. And so it gives me a version of this that is much slicker. And it's important to actually look at these because your account gets scored on your optimization score, which is whether you're paying attention to their recommendations or not. This one, fairly intimidating graph here, but what I've done is there's lots of different metrics. I mean, performance marketing is all about the metrics. And so this example is Google Ads click-through rate. And so when things change and something happens, it's my job to figure out, something changed. I better understand why and either leave it or fix it or explain it. And because there's so many different things that might change, I've taken this as it's an example from the manufacturing world. I worked as an engineer when I first got out of college. And in manufacturing, this is called statistical process control. And there are some very simple rules where you plot the metric on a chart every day. And then if it's above the mean by 3 standard deviations or below the mean for 9 times in a row, there's a whole bunch of fairly simple rules that tell you whether it's in control or something's changed. And so I built for all the different metrics there's like 25 different metrics for each client. And it looks at those every day. And if something's changed, it alerts me by Slack and said, something's changed, take a look at this. And so sometimes this stuff can sit for a couple of weeks before you catch it. And so this helps me catch changes more quickly. It didn't take a lot of work. I didn't tell it exactly how to color the chart or what color to do the dots or how to label it. I just said, give me a statistical process control for this number. And it figured that out. And then I gave a couple of tweaks on the formatting, but it's pretty smart. This is probably the most important message. Claude is really smart, but you just have to persist. A lot of the stuff just doesn't work and stuff breaks and it makes mistakes, but it knows how to fix its mistakes and it knows how to keep going. You just have to be persistent. And so when things break and when things aren't working properly, I'm always asking, this is broken. What can I do? How do I make it better? What should I do to stop you from doing this next time? In all my other projects, are there any mistakes that are similar to this that you can find and fix and build tests to stop them? And so when I find a mistake, it then propagates across all the different things I'm doing. Here's another one. So I made a mistake. I was doing some Google Analytics work and had some really complicated tags and consent stuff. And I made some mistakes and published it to the client's website. And so the mistakes were in production and breaking their numbers. So that was bad. So, I got to stop. I got to make this better. So I built myself a sandbox. I said, let's do this in a sandbox. Let's figure it all out. Let's automate it. And then we'll do it in a safe environment. Claude built a data stream called Sandbox that was actually alive in production, but called Sandbox, and got me again. So if you agree too fast, I built it so that if things are going quickly and we're agreeing too much and it's an important one, it pauses and it says, here's my devil's advocate gate. And then it writes down all the reasons why we shouldn't do what it just recommended we should do. And so I can look through the rationale. It argues against itself and I can read those arguments and think through. It just makes you pause and think it through some more. And a couple of times that process has stopped me from doing something where it could have had consequences. So this is a global instruction. So I tell it, remember this. If you and I agree too fast, do a devil's advocate analysis of your recommendation. And it stops and does that for me on a regular basis. Time savings is in quotes here because the amount of time I sunk to get my time savers to work and then keep going. At some point, it's going to save me a lot of time and be a lot more accurate. I'm not sure over that hump yet because I've been investing a lot of time in getting these things to work and iterating, and stuff is breaking all the time. And I'm very certain that the Anthropics and the OpenAIs are going to make this easier and easier and easier. But for now, there is a real maintenance tax. Permissions are tricky. Start read-only. Once you've got the hang of it, you can then start writing. I'm fairly open to risk. So I write stuff to Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager and Google Ads, but you have to work up to it before you do that. And when you connect most of these connectors, they start out read-only until you explicitly say, take off the training wheels. I'm ready to start making changes. And this is another problem I suffer from a lot. Because you can do almost anything, there's a temptation to try and do everything. And picking out which ones to do and which ones to wait is a constant problem for me. So I'll do some project and say, and now the next step is to do this. And we could extend that to do Bing and TikTok and something else. And so focusing on stuff where it's going to affect my clients or my strategies the next couple of weeks is what I'm trying to do. I'm not great at this, but that's important. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So I'm using Claude Code, Visual Studio, and Claude Design. 3 months ago, I was using Terminal, which is where you type directly in the terminal for Claude instead of Visual Studio, and Gamma, which is a tool for creating presentations that uses AI and is really good. It's just not as good as Claude Design. So just pick one, move forward, and be ready to change if you need to go. So this is just a list of other things that I've built, some of the different projects that I've been working on.